Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Fairview's coffee has mysteriously gone missing. Mayhem ensues when strange, coffee-craving zombies plague the city. Detective Mickey Potatoes, an overworked public servant, uncovers why ordinary citizens are losing their minds and how to stop the coffee apocalypse. But it involves the mafia. And when you're dealing with mafia crime families, nothing is ever easy. The mafia controls everything in the city, including the police, including him. If he breaks the mafia, they will break him. So, the city is without coffee. The city is burning before his very eyes, but he's powerless. Detective Potatoes has the power to stop the coffee apocalypse, but if he does, he could lose everything.
What is Path of the Pale Rider anyway? Is it a comic book? No, that's not it. Is it this? What the heck is Path of the Pale Rider, man? There's no way this is right. How about this? I have no idea.
We can rob a bank.
Oh, it's this.
The Madness Comic Network and Comic Related Madness proudly presents Madness Tuesday Morning Brew. Tune in to our content on Comic Talk with Pops Van Zandt on YouTube.
What's up, everybody? It's the Tuesday Morning Brew. Very happy 4th of July. If you are in a place where it's legal to set off fireworks, I look forward to seeing pictures online of all those fabulous fireworks. Here in Texas, we are not allowed to set off our own fireworks, but we usually get to watch the firework display put on by our local communities, and they're pretty big. I mean, it's Texas. Things are bigger here. We had actually one last week from our neighborhood, and it was fabulous. So I look forward to more and more fireworks. This is a recorded episode today. I am at the pool. I'm not here. This person is fake. It is generated from a computer. No, just kidding. I really hope you guys are having a wonderful day. If you're watching, this is a great episode. And if you're not watching today, make sure you go catch the rerun, because I have none other than Morgan Quaid here today. And if you're not familiar with Morgan Quaid, you are in for a treat. But real quick, Path of the Pale Rider, we are in the home stretch of finishing up issue number 3. Color is catching up to the inks, and then it goes to edit. All of the products are in except for the Funko Pops and the collectible stickers, which are coming. Those are usually pretty quick. I just had to get them ordered a specific way this time, but they're coming. So everything is here. The t-shirts are in. They look fabulous. All this stuff is looking really cool. I'm super excited for you all to get this next issue, but you have to promise me that you're not going to spoil the ending on social media. This happened the very first time I put out a warning, and guess what? Someone did it anyway. They shall remain nameless. But don't spoil the ending. This one, there's such major stuff happening. And then, of course, we leave you with that cliffhanger moment at the end. It's pivotal to the story. Do not spoil it, or I will send Carissa Grant, Pops Van Zandt, and who else? Chris Hayes will come track you down and make you sorry for it. I don't know. So good things are coming. I'm actually looking now for the schedule to see when we can start the next one. Issues 4 and 5 are going to be combined. So we're doing 4 and 5 is now going to become 4. So we're going to speed it up a little quicker. So you're going to get more meat with your potatoes. I'm excited. So that's all Path of the Pale Rider stuff. I will keep giving you updates as we progress. But now on to the reason we are here, and that is to talk with our guest today, Morgan Quaid, who is renowned in the indie comic book community. Everybody say good evening or good morning to Morgan Quaid. Hello, Morgan. How are you?
Hello. Good evening and morning, and happy fireworks or not fireworks and celebrations and such.
I think everybody can at least watch them some way, shape, or form, at least over here in the United States. For those of you who are unaware, Morgan is in Australia. So
yes, indeed. We do not have the 4th of July celebration in the same way. Maybe we should. Maybe we should just adopt the celebrations of every other country and then just max out our year with holidays. Yeah. That would be amazing.
Sorry, can't do it. It's Kwanzaa. Sorry, can't do it. It's Hanukkah. Sorry, it's Christmas. Sorry, it's Easter.
I'm going to write a letter to the government and say I have an awesome suggestion. I'm sure they'd be willing to hear once they fix the weather in my neck of the woods. But anyway, that's so
thing. You're in Australia. I'm in Texas, so we're having the complete opposite weather right now because
it is cold here and it is hot over there.
It is so hot. Define cold. For us in the United States, we go by Fahrenheit.
I don't really want to, because then the lovely viewers will realize how wet and weak I am, because it's actually not that cold here. Yeah, I'm in kind of Brisbane, which is not. It's kind of West Coast, America. So it doesn't really get that cold.
Gotcha.
Here at all, but it's cold for me, and I don't like any cold. I'm happy if it's just hot all year round, which it's not.
I'm with you. I was originally born and raised in Michigan, which is terribly cold 8 months of the year, and moved down to Texas, and I will take hot over cold any day. People are like, you ever going to go back and go skiing or snowboarding? And I was like, nope, I didn't even do those things when I was there. I hate the cold. Like, I'm not going outside. No.
Yeah, I hear. And so to put it in Fahrenheit terms, the coldest it gets here usually during the height of winter, where I am in Brisbane, is probably around 60 degrees.
Oh.
So it gets super cold. Super cold. I've got my heater on. I kid you not. I have the heater on. I have jumpers ready.
Yeah.
I
love you. Put on a sweatshirt. 60
degrees. I've got a sweatshirt. Yep.
We go in the pool.
I know. That's why I didn't want to say anything, because I complain about it. But I am also in a very cold house, though. It's got a lot of earth on different sides of this room, so it's very cold.
So it gets chilly.
Maybe even
I think it's all
5 degrees colder.
Right. Yeah. It's all perspective, because now cold to me was probably 50 degrees. I'm cold. But it didn't used to be. When I was in Michigan, it was like, 45 and I could be fine. You get used to your own climate, and then any kind of change is like, nope, I don't like this. No, thank you.
I think that's where I sort of land, wherever I am, because we used to live in Cairns, which was kind of the Florida of Australia. Mm-hmm. And I've lived in Melbourne, which is a lot colder. And wherever I go, I just like to be able to whinge about the weather. I think it's my prerogative, and I manage to do it wherever I am. Anytime winter comes around, it's or it's summer's too hot, or there's always something to whinge about.
Weather, it's how it goes. I think it's the same everywhere. Like, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. It's just like, no, we're never happy. We just want 80 degrees.
Only happy whinging about the weather.
I think that makes me happy as well. So
yeah.
But I think it's cool in this day and age that we in the indie community can be in United States and Australia and still hang out and still talk comics. My first time meeting you, I was campaigning. I don't know if it was my first campaign or second campaign for Path of the Pale Rider. And I was on your show, and it was one of the most memorable shows I have ever been on, hands down. And I do like 30 shows a campaign, right? So I've done, probably 100 shows at this point. And your show definitely made a core memory in my mind. Just, it was so much fun. And you had different activities throughout. And I was like, man, I need to change my game. Like, I do that.
Part of that is I have to keep myself awake and focused. So I've strategically put different sections so that I don't sort of just drift off into, my own mind.
I think I used that name for my D&D character. I think I used Mercy Butcher for my character, who was like a Western fighting a giant undead giant. And I use Luz Butcher as my D&D character name, who is a pirate cleric. So
fantastic!
I was like, that was too good of a name to just.
D&D is a great way to break the ice, and I don't get to play. I don't play with anyone, so I just thought, well, if I'm talking to someone, I'll just force them to play a little bit of D&D with me. Why not? It'll be good fun.
This was my first time playing with the Madness, so I played one game and it kind of fell apart, but now we're doing, what's it called? Tomb of Annihilation, I want to say.
Oh, yes.
And we have a group that's pretty consistent. So that's my first experience. And now I've been asked to try and build a D&D for Path of the Pale Rider, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So it hasn't been done yet.
Wow.
Have you ever built a world campaign world?
No. There are probably 3 worlds that I would like to do that with, but it's time and effort and energy. And in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, but Morgan, you have another 20 books to write. Hurry up and get them written before you do the thing.
Right.
So yeah, I got to get these books out.
Same.
You know.
I'm like, oh, you have all these projects, and then you have this, and then you got to start that, and then did you talk to so and so, and then so and so. It just doesn't happen. So, but I don't even know where to start. So I got to pick some brains and take some notes and figure that out. But so anyway, that was my first experience with you, and then I'm excited now that you're on my show, and we can talk about your books, and then we're both involved in ASAP Imagination and Any One World. So this is just going to be a great time to catch up for me. I just was really looking forward to having you on the show because I haven't seen you in a while. And then to hear about what you're working on, because I know some of it's comics and some of it's not. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation today.
Well, ditto. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I've been looking forward to it too.
Yay. So Hades kind of connected us because we're part of ASAP Imagination in Any One World. But before Any One World and before that, how did you start in comics?
I started in novels and then did that for about 6 years, writing furiously, trying to figure out how to put a novel together because I wasn't really convinced I knew how novels worked. Frankly, 15 books later, I'm still not all that convinced I know how they work. So I was writing novels for 6 years and trying to go through the traditional publishing route, get a literary agent, get them to then get a publishing deal. That it's a lot of the percentages just go down with each hurdle that you go over. And really I couldn't get out of the gate, and I was still at the point where I'm still learning how to write, and I'm still learning how to craft a story and all of that sort of stuff. So trying to get my head around the industry as it was, this is 15 years ago or so, 20 years ago. It was a steep learning curve and incredibly depressing to try and at that time. And at that time, self-publishing just wasn't a viable option. You would have to go and like a lot of us do with Kickstarter, go and get your books printed somewhere else or somewhere local and then ship them. And if you're in Australia, that means posting primarily to the States and other places. Just the postage, it wasn't worth it, plus the printing costs. So back then, it got to that point where I thought, I want to tell these stories. I want to get this stuff out there, but I cannot get this in front of people to get it read. I mean, I printed the books, I had them physical copies, but getting them in people's hands just wasn't a thing I could do. Then had a bit of a break for a while, focused on music for a few years. And then I was in the city walking around, saw a comic book shop, and I just thought, I've got an hour, I'll pop in. Never really big into comics when I was little. I never did the Marvel or DC thing or any of that sort of stuff. So I wasn't really involved. I read a lot, but I didn't do comics.
Right.
Walk into this shop, and I immediately, what catches my eye once I get past all of your Batmans and your, Spider-Man and all that sort of stuff, all of the men and the Wonder Womans and such. I turn around and I see the Image Comics range and started leafing through and picking up. And the first book I picked up, I think, was Chew, issue 1 of Chew by Rob Guillory, who I interviewed on my podcast, which was amazing because he was the first artist that I saw that drew me into comics, which is amazing. That's a whole story. Anyway.
Wow.
So I picked that book up, started reading, and my first thought was, my God, I had no idea that there's horror, there's urban fantasy, there's epic fantasy, there's every imaginable genre of story being told via this format. The artwork looks amazing, very different to the traditional sort of 90s and 80s comic book style. So it was immediately appealing. As soon as I did that, I emptied my wallet and filled my bag up with everything that I could carry home. Spent the next 3 months just kind of educating myself on what was around. And And incidentally, 3 months is not enough time for an education
No,
at all.
I feel you. It's like
You know,
scratching the surface.
absolutely. There's so much you don't know after 3 months, but I couldn't wait. So I immediately started turning one of my novels into a comic. And
Which
then
one?
it was one called Idle Thuggery. There's two, Idle Thuggery and Shadow's Daughter were the two first that I kind of went to. Actually,
Cool.
Shadow's Daughter might have been first. And
Okay.
if you're lucky or unlucky enough to have a first edition of that, either of those books, you will find that they're cool story, great artwork, not amazing, but okay artwork, very wordy, very many words.
I think that's one of
Many
my
words.
challenges as well, because being a writer, and I wrote for a screenplay. Path of the Pale Rider is a screenplay for a full-length movie. And that's one of the challenges, is trying to fit everything in that I'm trying to say in the space that's available. So I'm finding I'm rewriting on the fly when I get the pages from Marco, that I'm okay, this isn't going to fit, or there's got to be a better way to say this, or here's space here where I could add something. So it's just constant change and constant adaptation because of the art form. But
100%.
it makes it better because the artwork a lot of times is saying what I'm trying to convey. So I don't need to say it. Right.
Yeah, and until you see it, you kind of not knowing how much can I take out because it is visually seen. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I will if I'm writing a new script, I will write very light scripts, and I will 100% every time change them when the pages come in based on the facial expressions and movement and all that sort of stuff, and it ends up being better. And it's exciting because you get a page and you think, oh, I can do this and do that and all this sort of cool stuff.
Yeah. And that's why people are like, why don't you hire a letterer? I was like, no, I need to do it. I need to do it. I'm like,
you'd be going back and forwards a million times with them otherwise.
I'm like, they would hate me.
Yeah. Or you would, or they would take all your money. If they're charging by the word or something.
Yeah, it was just like, it wouldn't work. It would be a terrible relationship for the two of us. So I was like, I that's going to be the weakest part of the comic, is the lettering, but I will keep learning and pushing myself until it gets where it needs to be for the comic. But it's the only way it's going to work, is if I letter.
Well, and that's if you look back at the earliest ones that I've produced, it's like the layers of a tree, or the sedimentary and all the rock layers and all that stuff. You can see the really rough stuff at the bottom of the stuff that I initially did, and it's so, again, the story is the same essentially, but it's told in such a different way, and you kind of cringe when you read your own stuff and you think, oh, come on, man, you didn't need to spend so many words on that one thing. But like I say, you learn. The difference is, I was the same with writing novels. You're either the sort of person that does a ton of research, thoroughly works everything out, and then strategically kind of plans, or what I found is doesn't do anything, because that tends to be a path to procrastination as well, if you do all the research but you don't do the thing. Or you're the sort of person like me that just goes off completely half-cocked and will start doing the thing without any idea what you're doing, and then discover as you go, which means you end up wasting a lot of time and making a lot of mistakes, but at least you're moving. I can't sit still. I've got to be doing something. So, and you learn a lot when you're doing versus just researching about it as well.
I think I'm a little a column A, little a column B, where I find something that I need to work into the story and I'll spend my time researching it. And then there's other times where I'm like, I can't stop and research that right now. I'll just keep writing and keep going, and then have to go back. But like you said, if you're not moving forward, you just don't, it's like, I got to a spot in Path of the Pale Rider. I got stuck in a fight, and because I was trying to think of something cool and I couldn't, and I put it down. I haven't picked it up since, but I'm like 26 issues in. So it's not like I need to. Yeah.
You've got time. You've got time.
Right. We're on issue 3.
yeah. Well, this is the I have the same challenge. I've never had that challenge with comics. I've always had that challenge with books, with novels. Well, and particularly now that I've got one series that's up to book 6, which is as far as I've gone in a series. Book 4 was very difficult to get through. Book 5 was murder. It was just because you're thinking, I don't know what to do to raise the stakes anymore.
Right.
I don't know how to keep the tension going and everything. And I have to keep in mind everything that's come before, but somehow do new stuff that makes sense. I've got to keep track of everything. You kind of work yourself into a hole that you can't get out of.
So how did you get out of it?
I dropped the book at about so average book is around 80 to 90,000 words. I dropped the book at around 30,000 words. I got to that point and just could not get beyond it. Couldn't think of any ideas. And then what I usually do is I flood myself with movies I love, new books, movies, comics, anything that's got a really cool idea or a setting that will jog, get my memory, my mind going and bring fresh ideas and stuff. And then immediately, as soon as I stopped, start writing another book. So I stopped that one, started writing a new book, wrote that book from start to finish in a couple of months, or actually 3 months, that one to get all the way through. That book is shelved. I don't even know when that book's anything's gonna happen of it. It was in a different series. I was thinking through different ideas. Yeah. Then I went back, did another 30,000 words, got stuck again, and thought I can't do this. Shifted to another book that I wrote a lot quicker because I thought I'll write another book, but I'll write a book that's in the same universe as this one, as a bit of a marketing trick. So later, whichever series readers discover, they'll have another whole series they can sort of binge when they get to the. That's cool. It's so I thought, I'll do this spin-off sort of series. Wrote that book, then went back to it and finally finished it, and it kind of flowed at that sort of point. So it took 2 books in between to get this one done. Yikes. I mean, I feel you. Just because I haven't been able to slog through that one issue, but I've been doing everything else in the meantime. But again, it's not a huge priority where it needs to be done. It's not like we're doing that issue next campaign. So it's just like, get to it when I get to it. But it's a good spot too, but it's pivotal for this one character and I don't want to mess it up. So I'm just, I'm stuck with like, what will this person do? And I have an idea, but I don't know. I got too many other side projects going on before I can go back. Sometimes what helps me too is I go back and I reread my series. And that gets me like back in the mindset of that world that I've built and who the characters are at that time and where they're going, what I'm trying to accomplish. So I don't know. So the comics that you have on any one world, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different titles at the moment. Baby, there they are. In fact, I'm gonna go. Well, I'm gonna pull up ASAP Imagination so people can see what that is. Cool. Because we're familiar, but in case people aren't, there is this whole website. There's a company called ASAP Imagination. It's Paul Hayden and lots of other people involved. You'll see George Medina, all sorts of people, right? Yeah. And we have their stories for the ASAP Imagination. So they're core people, they're writers, they're animators, not animators, they're illustrators, the artists here. And then they have this whole other series down here called Any One World. And this is where Morgan and I am, correct? And look, here's me. Ta-da. Yeah. We got 3 pages of just awesomeness. Here's Paul Gomez, Cryptic Haze, PTSD. Did I pass you? No, there I am. Here you are. Here's Crow, and here's Enmity, Kira Burns, Raven Running. And then here's, of course, George's Rust 5377. So really cool that we're all here. And these are just digital downloads. And it's fun to be able to see all these different creators come together in the indie world from all over the world. And it's just a cool place if you're a reader to be like, ooh, what's new? You know what I mean? What's popping in the indie world? And it's all kind of in one place. There's 51 products. There's a lot. Let's see.
alphabetically. Yeah, this is a nice website. He can do all sorts of stuff here. And then you have your own collection, the Morgan Quaid collection, which is great. And then here's just your titles for you.
Yeah.
So we have
Yeah.
Enmity. We have 3 issues of that. And then we have Raven Running, Kira Burns, and Crow. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's the main story, which is essentially about a teenage girl wandering the post-apocalyptic world, trying to find her deadbeat dad, who happens to be Lucifer, who is also the cause of the end of the world and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of action, a bit of humor, a bit of horror, all that sort of stuff in the mix. But the whole story revolves around this one girl. Her mother has died, and her mother's dying words are, "You need to find your father," because she doesn't know that her father is Lucifer. So it's about her trying to find her father. But throughout this story, she gets in a lot of peril, a lot of demon type creatures are after her for some reason. She doesn't know why. And then you find out as the story progresses that she has other sisters. So she's not the only one, the only progeny of Lucifer. And so Kira Burns is the story of one of her sisters before she meets Daisy, the main character. So Kira Burns is kind of a standalone. I think it's about 100-page graphic novel. Really, really cool story about Kira, and it has stuff to do with fire and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty cool. And then Raven Running is a similar sort of thing, but it's with a character named Raven, who is another sister. So as the story progresses, all of the sisters begin to meet and realize that saving the world kind of sits on their shoulders. So we're about halfway through the whole story with what exists there. And some are black and white. Enmity and Crow are in color, and the others are in black and white. And
What
it's
is
all
Crow?
good fun.
The Angels.
So Crow's like an 8-page prequel, if you like, to the main story. So it shows a bit of background on the main story, and it features a little character called Crow, who is a crow, but is not a crow. And you have to, of course, get it to understand what that means. But and it's the whole background is kind of angels and demons. God is missing, and as a result, they are kind of at war. But there's a whole history to it and all that sort of stuff. But it really is the story about a deadbeat dad and her and his daughter, and the chemistry between those two and them getting together. Because of course he doesn't want to father his children and take responsibility. And the driving impetus for the whole thing is what starts the apocalypse rolling is the Devill quits one day. He just decides, because the Devill in this story, his whole deal is that he whispers in the ears of powerful people like dictators and those sorts of people, politicians. And his whole job is to balance good and evil and to make sure that there's sufficient evil in the world to balance good and natural stuff. And he actually works for God, or a version of God in this universe. But he's been doing this for thousands of years. He's sick of it.
Tired of it.
He's just bored. And so he just says, no, that's it. I'm done. But that one decision throws everything out of balance, and then chaos ensues and all the shenanigans. Yes, indeed.
Well, this is the story right up my alley. I love the apocalypse theme. Supernatural. I love supernatural as well. Like Carissa would love this. This is right up her alley, with the angels and demons running around. And I love the fact that they're all sisters, and they're, that you're kind of building your universe through these different characters, and that eventually they can meet up and make an impact together. Because we get attached to our one character, and everybody sees themselves as someone different, and it'd be interesting to throw them all together and see how they act. So it's like, that's a cool moment. So how many more issues do you have planned, or other titles? Because you have Kira and you have Raven and Crow, but I'm sure there's more than of those rumbling around in your head too.
There are, yeah. So there's probably another 2 main issues for the story, and then probably another 2 or 3 of the other sisters that will have their own standalone stories as well. Again, it's just time and money and priority and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is kind of phase 1, and then phase 2 will close out that story arc and all that sort of stuff. There is a novel as well based on it called Finding Dad in the Apocalypse, but I haven't released that yet. I have to finish that one off and get that going and everything. But that's for fans of comics. That's just words, just lots and lots of words. So it's a bit different. Don't expect pictures.
That's funny. You're like, there's no pictures in this one, people. You got to actually, use your imagination.
Well, I mean, so I this is the mistake I made, because I'd been working with comics for a while. Then I went to release one of my first books in another series, and I got a comic artist friend of mine to do the cover for it, and realized, oh, people are going to think this is a graphic novel. And the feedback I got was, oh, I thought this was a graphic novel. So I had to kind of learn the lesson. Oh, yeah. Make sure you're clear on what the actual thing is that you're providing, because people will get confused otherwise, and it's just words. Yeah.
Words are not scary, people. You can enjoy them just as much as a graphic novel.
Words are great. Words are amazing.
Your imagination will paint the picture for you as well. Trust me.
That's right. So, I mean, unless you're an incredibly boring individual, the story will be great. But if you're boring, the story will just be slightly less interesting because you lack the imaginative capacity to invent stuff. But that's fine. If you're that boring, you're probably not going to know the difference anyway. It's fine. It's fine.
They make cool. Beige is amazing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. A superhero that can tell people exactly what time it is in Guam at any moment. Oh, what a great story. Excellent. Is there any sort of strife that he gets into, any struggle? No. He just goes to work and does his thing, and someone asks him the time, and he tells them the time in Guam, and that's excellent. Great story.
Moving on. Moving on. Right? It's like, well, if that's what they want, I guess.
Yeah. Someone else can write it.
Right. I was like, I don't think that's for you.
No. I did come up with a story idea, though, of a guy who, was it me or someone else came? No, it was someone else on my podcast came up with a story. I don't know. Someone came up with a story about a guy who sits on a chair, a chair that sits somewhere, and people are sitting on it year after year, and it survives and all that sort of stuff. And then everything sort of dies, and no, I can't remember the end of the story. So it's that good. I can't remember.
Wait, what?
It was no, it was George, I think. It was a story about, it wasn't a chair, it was a bed, and the guy is lying on the bed, and then eventually over time he lies there so long he becomes the bed. I don't know. Bed? I shouldn't have started that one. That just went nowhere. Yeah. It's like I'm trying to describe to you a thing that I can't remember. That I experienced, but I can't remember it well enough. I shouldn't be telling the story, but I've started. So I just keep going, thinking somewhere along the line, this is how I write novels. Somewhere along the line, an idea will pop in and I'll... Didn't happen.
I'm not helping. I'm just having a good old time in the background.
That's fine, because there's just nothing there. Anywho,
it was like the segment of your show where we did like pitch a bad movie. There you go. There's a guy who lays on a bed. Eventually, he becomes the bed. The end.
That's where it was from. But that's exactly where it was from.
See,
and it was George Medina that had the idea. But the problem is, I can't remember it well enough, and it was purposefully a bad idea. So already it's wrong. Oh man. Anyway. There was okay. All right. I'm going to redeem myself in 2 minutes. All right. So this was one idea that I had that I can remember. It's called Mascot, and it might be a comic coming to a store near you at some point. But anyway, so the story is about this mascot. He's in a bear kind of costume, and he loves doing the mascot stuff, and lives quite a repetitive life. He starts getting depressed. He starts, he only feels kind of alive when he's inside the mascot suit. So he decides he's not going to take it off anymore. Keeps the mascot suit on throughout his life, and then slowly over time he starts to become the bear. He starts to become the
right.
Yeah, and then that's
This is a horror story because when someone tries to take it off,
doesn't come off anymore. He is the bear.
He is the bear.
It could be a good horror movie.
That would be interesting body horror, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the psychological kind of, you know, devolving from human into man bear.
I thought your bad pitch was actually a good pitch when I was on the show because it was about the mirror and how like the mirror at a certain time of the day became like a portal you could go, but it was like someone's kitchen. So like the guy would just sneak into their kitchen and steal food out of their fridge. That's all he would do with it.
That's right. Yeah, it's a great. I love a pitch that's like a great start, but does not go anywhere.
Right. Then the guy's like, I'm hungry. He just goes to their fridge instead of his own.
Yeah. There's always another place to go. What you could do is you could make it into a proper story by have him witness a murder or something while he's in someone else's kitchen, just eating from the food, and over there someone's getting killed. And then, you know, somehow he's captured on camera, and then the police come and say, you know, blah, blah, it could be that. But that has nothing to do with the portal.
He gets blamed for it and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't even.
There's all these murders happening in kitchens around the country, and he's being blamed for them all.
In that specific part of the country where he's nowhere by, right? Because the mirror could be taking him to anywhere.
That's right.
There's serial killer in Texas, and the guy lives in Australia.
Yeah, it's got some legs, that one.
I thought it was really good. Yeah. It was good. So,
but then you have the same problem with anything, which you and I are very, very familiar with, which is that's a great idea. I should write that down and do that. That would be 3 months of work to write the novel, another month to edit, and I have so much other stuff to do.
I would just write it and do nothing with it. That's my downfall. Is I have all these stories that are just written and they're just sitting there because I know all the time and money that goes into doing it. Where I'm just like, maybe another time, right? Because right now we're doing this one. I don't want another artist team. I don't want to do 2 Kickstarters at once. I don't want to manage all that right now. Like, it's
a nightmare, and that's. Talking about mistakes again, that was one of the mistakes I made. Is too much, too fast, too wide, too broad, too many Kickstarters. It's all great and it's great learning and all of that sort of stuff, but it's exhausting, and it's also like, when am I going to finish this series? Because I have 3 series that are not finished. And knowing what, like you say, what it's going to cost in time and money to finish those, it's kind of prohibitive at a certain point in time. Which is another reason why I moved to novels primarily, because at least with that, it sits 99% with me, and the work is mine, and I have to get it done and all the rest of it. But I'm not I don't have a creative team that I have to kind of.
Which is good and bad, because when you fall down, you take all the blame.
You make a mistake, it's all on me.
Right. But then when you're putting in the hard work, you don't have to wait for other people to catch up. And it is so hard to build that team and keep that team, because even when you have a great team, it doesn't always stay. Life happens. You know, people have kids, people move. They have sicknesses, they have, life changes where it's like we had the great thing for as long as we could, but now it's like gotta do something different. So
and I mean, Enmity issue 1, I worked with a creative team in Russia who were great, really great guys. Then the war happened, and I had to stop working with them because, one of the things from the Australian government is we're sanctions and all that sort of stuff. So I had to find a new artist, a new team on book 2. Yeah. So immediately, so then I thought, well, maybe I can turn that into an awesome strength and be like, every book has a different artist. But it's just, it's not ideal. It's not.
And publishers don't want that either. Like if you pitch to Image, they're like, when we're reading this comic, these are the people we want to hire. So you can't change out a colorist or an inker after you get approved. You have to pitch again, and then it has to go through approval again. So it's anytime you change a team member, it's like, well, we're on the chopping block. So
which is why most indie publishers will want a graphic novel over a series, because like it's done, and then they don't have that issue, whereas you get to issue 3 or 4 and then the colorist leaves or the whatever else happens. Exactly right. And the problem from the creator side is that puts all of the onus and the pressure, financially and otherwise, on the creator. So you're wearing all of that. If anything goes wrong, it's on you. It's a
we know.
Yeah,
we know. You and I are the same. It's just like,
yep.
Man. But I mean, that's why Kickstarters are such a. It's like they're a love-hate relationship. We love them because it's a different route you can go. You don't have to get picked up by Image to be successful and have people read your stories. Are you making big bucks? No. Are you making big bucks with Image? Probably not. You know what I mean? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
This isn't something that we do to be a millionaire. No. But people can read your stories and you can publish yourself using a Kickstarter platform. But they are just so much work. I always say it's like having children. It's like you forget how painful it is. This is, I guess, a woman's point of view, but it's like you forget about the labor and how terrible it is to go through the birthing process. And then you're like, I'm ready for another kid. And it's like,
and then
remember all the crap but it's like, when you get to fulfillment, you're like, we're all done. Let's do it again. And then you're in the trenches again at your plateau, like questioning all your life choices.
Absolutely. For me, that has sped up now. So it's day 2 of a campaign. Day 2 of a campaign. I'm
You're
already
like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I hate this. This is terrible. Yeah. I hate everything. Why am I doing any of this stuff? Yeah.
I made a video for one of my for Carissa for when she launched her last campaign, but I want to show it to you. It's 29 seconds, but I think it has really the essence of what it feels like to run a Kickstarter campaign. Watch.
Cool.
Hold on. I think I'm bleeding. Am I bleeding? Nose and lips. Okay. Ow. Please, Mr. Hood.
Right?
That's exactly what it is. The fiver bit just bang.
Right. Wait, stop. And then it's all over. Next campaign.
That is exactly what it is. But the opposite side of that is if you're the author and you're throwing the ball as well, it's like just throwing it into the ocean and just nothing. It just disappears. just throwing balls into the ocean and then just nothing's coming back at all. Yeah, it is. It's a journey. It really is. It takes a lot out of you.
It does. It's like I said, you got to really love what you do. And it always cracks me up when someone's like, I'm gonna throw something on Kickstarter. I was like, did you research? And they're like, what do you mean research? I'm like, how much are you putting on your product for? Or what are you like? How many backer levels are you gonna have? Like, how are you gonna handle your shipping? Who's doing this? What are like? Where are you gonna have your print? Where? Like, who are you modeling? How's you this? How are you budgeting it? What formulas are you in there? Just like, I don't want to do a Kickstarter anymore. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm glad I can help you. Have a nice day.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Don't let the door hit you.
Like, but if that's what you want to do.
The hardest thing to hear, but it's the thing that everyone going on Kickstarter needs to hear is, and Kickstarter's quite open with this, the whole basically if you have an audience and you bring them to Kickstarter, you'll do well. If you don't have an audience and you go to Kickstarter, nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen.
It's really hard because it's like, but how do I get an audience?
How do you get an audience?
It's a catch-22. I need to be on Kickstarter to find people that are interested. And to a certain extent that does work, but it's also just such a slog and building a fan base and all that sort of stuff. It's
time. That's what it is. I was interviewing Madeline Holly Rising, and she does this series, the Boston Metaphysical Society. And she's about 10 years into this and has, I don't know, 20 odd titles, but they're all under the same kind of umbrella of the Boston Metaphysical Society. So same thing like yourself, where you have like Enmity, but then you have like your offshoots, your Raven, your Crow, and Kira Burns. She just, I mean, and they did like, I don't know, 25 grand on a Kickstarter. And I was like, I looked at her campaign and all they had was books. There was no t-shirts and sheets and buttons and bookmarks and hot sauce and blah, 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 which is like what I think my people want. Is I want all the cool stuff, right? She's like, it's just books. And she still does 25K. And I was just like, how do I get from where I'm at to where you are? What's your advice for that? And she was like, it's just time. She's like, you have to build your audience, and the best thing you can do is continue to do what you're doing. And as time goes on, more people have the opportunity to find you. And that's it.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're going through it, but you will get to a sort of a point where you have a back catalogue of enough size that when someone does find your latest project, they go right back and they get everything that you've got. And that's how you start to sort of move things. But like I say, it just takes so much time, and it's little bit by little bit. I think the worst thing for creators is the overnight success that keeps getting pushed, on media and all that sort of stuff. There's no such thing. It doesn't work that way. You build it brick by brick, time, effort, persistence, all that sort of stuff.
But I mean, you kind of have to embrace the suck. You embrace what you're going through, because someday when you're through it, you can go back and you look at like, hey, I really stuck in there, even though when I made this mistake and it cost me this much money, or I made, I did this and look how many shows I was doing, and I was begging, pleading, and trying to get on new things, and nobody knew who I was, so nobody wanted to give me a chance. And now it's like they're calling me. You know what I mean? That's not where I am now. I'm not saying that's not, you know what I mean? But I'm saying at some point, when you are at that place where it's like, hey, Morgan, you want to come on my show? Yeah, absolutely. It'll just be, you'll be able to look back and remember the suck and be like, I withstood that. I made it through to the other side. I didn't give up.
It makes it sweeter when you accomplish something. And it's also, I kind of embrace the writing thing, because there is a long history of writers toiling away in the dark without being noticed, some of which just never, goes anywhere. Some get a degree of success or whatever, but there is this kind of like, I do this because I have to do this. I need to be creating stories and doing things, and which is kind of nice.
When you have this idea, and then for me, I never dreamt of being a writer. I wasn't a little girl. I wasn't writing stories. I think I wanted to be a veterinarian or something, and that didn't work out. Like I have an art degree, which I don't use. I was doing financials for a family-owned business in Michigan. That's what I was doing before I left my job to do this. And I don't have a writing degree, nothing. But when I wrote this story and people started to read it, it was like the impact that it had is like, all right, what are you doing with this? Because people need to read it. And then it was like, really? And then I let someone else read it. Same thing. Where are you got to pitch this to Netflix. No. And I'm like, pitch it to Netflix. Are you crazy? Like, right. But then it was, my husband read it and he was just like, this is a comic book and we should look into making it. And I was like, okay. Then you're getting, it's almost like you don't believe that it would have any legs until other people tell you it does. But then it's like, okay, now it's like validation for these other stories that I have, where it's like, I've been working on these for a long time and I would love for people to be able to read them, but
it just takes, I find about one a month for me is enough now. It used to be
a month.
No. One fan or reader, buying a book and commenting, or just buying the book and oh, this is really cool or whatever. That's all I need is to be just like, oh, someone likes it. Someone read it. Someone likes it.
Yay!
You know, yay. And I find that it kind of, so when I first started writing, it was like one a year. If one person a year likes this thing, that's amazing. Now that things are selling a bit more, it's, you know, a little bit more compressed, but it's, yeah. And you're right. It just validates, because it doesn't matter how many of these you've done, you still, I think, so the difference for me between writing novels and screenplays and comics is because you have an artistic team with the comic straight away, and because a large part of the burden is placed on the artist and their skill and their ability and all that sort of stuff, it's much easier for me to look objectively at a comic that I've done and go, that's a great comic book, versus this one, it's okay. It's not as good as what I wanted it to be, but this one's amazing. I can see that objectively. I kid you not, after finishing just about every novel, I don't know if it's any good or not. There's stuff in there that I really like. There's some really cool characters that I really like, but I'm so invested in the story, I have no idea what people will say. So until I start getting feedback from, you know, beta readers and stuff like that, I won't have any clue. And,
well,
you know,
I mean, I get that, because that's how it was with my stories too, where it's like, I was like, nah, it's just a story. And then people would read it and be like, no, you know, it needs to be that. Like, and what's really weird about Path of the Pill Writer is that people see it in their head as their own medium. So if they're like the video game people, they see it as a role play video game. If they're comic book people, like my husband, they see it as a comic book. I was in production. I wrote it as a screenplay. So the story kind of is a chameleon. It will, you know, it'll camouflage itself as to whatever medium. But it's just interesting when people are like, I see this in my head as X, Y, and Z. That's how I know I touched them, is because when they internalize it and they're, you know, in playing the story in their head in the way, and I was like, okay, I might be onto something. But until people were reading it, I was like, yeah, I wrote this thing. I don't know what to do with it.
That's where reviews are really, really great. Because it does validate. Oh, okay. And even so this is where, again, the difference between novels and other stuff. The novels, I have a team of editors. There are 2 or 3 people that I go to that are very good at the editing side. I don't have that with the comics as much. But obviously there's not as many words. It's a little bit easier to do yourself, all that sort of stuff. So it's not as necessary as what it is for. The best thing is when I get feedback from an editor from the novel, because they will pick up on so many things that I've missed, that I've written weirdly, that I've repeated 5 times. But also that's the process where you really learn how to write better and be better at what you're doing. But also I love my editors, because they'll put comments through the manuscript, but some of those comments will just be, you know, this made me laugh, or this is amazing, or I had no idea this was going to be, which is really great, because then you think, okay, those points during the thing, I know the reader reacted the way I wanted them to react there.
Right.
Whereas if you don't know that, it's really hard. And I've found with comic books as well, it's really hard because they're not as long form.
Yeah.
People will say, oh, it was great. It was really fun. It was really cool. It was really great. And that's it. But they won't be like, oh, man, page 23, when I turned the page and this thing happened, it was shocking. It was amazing. It's just not quite the same. Maybe if you're getting into a graphic novel size, there's a bit more of that. But
I get that from my people, because I kill a lot of characters in my story. So they're like, no, you know.
Why?
Why, Laurie? But that's why I was like, that's my PSA at the beginning of this episode, where I was just like, it's coming. Please do not spoil anything, because there's a big ending at the end of this one. There's a lot of stuff that happens, but please don't spoil, because let everybody have that moment of no, you know, like.
Yeah, that's what you want.
So I get that a lot from people, like, you did what? And they just shake their head at me. And I was just like, I warned you when you started reading this, don't get attached to anybody. Just about everybody dies.
Well, I mean, given the nature of the story, it kind of makes sense. You know, it would be a bit funny if they're all, you know, everything's fine. It's all fine.
Yeah. Well, isn't that a major complaint in the last Lord of the Rings series?
Right.
Where it was like the elf lady. And I'm terrible, because I'm sure they're gonna take away my nerd card. But when there was like a volcano that erupted, and she was outside and everybody died, and then she just stood up like, eh. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It was like she's just safe through everything. And it's like, you know, there's no consequences to her actions. She just survives. And it's like, come on. But
this is where I think one of my series is called The Seven Hungers. It's a novel series, not a comic book series.
yeah.
It's the main
This
one I'm
one.
working on at the moment. Oh, there you go. That one there. The Seven Hungers. Words and such.
I like it.
So the thing I love about this, so the main character is called Ambrose Drake. He's an exiled sorcerer who is brought back into the fold because of an emergence event that happens. Basically, a demon king is trying to do bad stuff. So he's brought in to do it. There's a lot of drama, though, because he himself is infested by a demonic sovereign. So he's got issues himself. He's carrying this creature around with him. And also the other issue is when he is called to investigate this event, he has to work with his ex-wife, who is in charge of the investigation. And so there's a lot of conflict and all that sort of stuff. But the thing I love about it is every book, because I wanted there to be consequence for stuff. And there might be a few occasions where you see this in superhero stories, but very, very rarely. This isn't a superhero story, by the way, but
right.
I want there to be consequences, but I can't kill him off because he's got to do like 6 books.
Yeah,
so I can't kill him off. But I want there to be consequences. So every book, something happens to him. He's marred in some way, permanently injured in some way. I won't go through it because it'll give away.
Right.
But
no spoilers, people.
no spoilers. But he does, because I like the idea, that volcano idea. All right, at least let her lose an ear and half an eye. At least have her carry something forward in the story with her that shows she's been through that traumatic event, rather than, well, now you just look the same as you always did.
Right.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like, you can have scars, even if they're emotional scars, but she was just like, volcano's gone, everybody's dead, and she walked away from it. And we were like, what is the point of watching this? You know what I mean? And it's like, there needs to be some kind of connection. There needs to be consequences. There needs to be risk. Otherwise, why bother showing it to us, you know?
Exactly right.
Yeah, his ear looks messed up in this picture. Let's kind of blow it up. Oh, I guess not. Wait, go back.
Oh, you went too far.
I was like, ooh.
I told you.
We're reading this.
Just
Words, people. There it is. Now, question about the cover art. Did you have to, how do you go through that? Like getting a cover, like this is a person, like getting them to take a picture.
So there's a few ways you can do it. You can try and do it yourself. And if you're not used to that sort of stuff, it usually doesn't turn out that well. Right. You can pay $800 plus to get a designer to design it for you.
Okay.
Which is traditionally what you would do, but this is where it's different talking to comic book people, because comic book people are like $800 for cover. Yeah, okay, I get it. That's a fair bit. But if you've got a comic, obviously you're probably paying less for a cover. But for people writing novels for the first time, it's like $800 for one image. That's ridiculous, you know. This one I did myself because I've got a bit of experience with the Photoshop and other sort of stuff. So I did this myself. It basically, you get a stock image. So you buy the license for a stock image of the actor, and then the magic stuff at the back I just built. The image at the back, the other sort of stuff. You can get free images as well that you sort of blend in there. And then the rest is just how much you know about Photoshop and how much, you know, how good you are with that stuff.
This looks really good, Morgan. I'm impressed. I was like, you spent the $800, didn't you? Because this looks, and you're like, no, I did it myself. I'm like,
I was about to. I was going to spend the money, and I just thought, what are you doing, Morgan? You know how to use this stuff. Just figure out the way to do it and just do it. So I did it. Book 4 is my favorite in the series. The cover, it's like the Whisper kind of one. It's probably not the best cover, but it's my favorite. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So you basically just got to get enough images of that main actor, and then the backgrounds tend. See, this is the difference between comic books and novels. With novels, you want to go for what's recognizable by readers, not what stands out necessarily. So again, the first group of covers that I had for this were done by by a comic artist friend of mine. They looked amazing, but again, people would think, oh, is this a novel or a graphic
yeah.
novel? So I
Yeah.
had to go with this because pretty much all urban fantasy books
Yes.
have this same look. Main character in the middle, magic going on, magical symbols, lightning, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I did. And so that means there's much more likely that people are going to click on it if they like that style of genre because they recognize the thing.
Yes.
That's this whole originality thing. I hate not being original, but it hurts you not being original in terms of sales and marketing and that sort of stuff. Like,
right.
It's better if it's recognizable to your audience.
It's branding, and your branding has a
Yeah.
purpose. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
But these look
Yeah.
fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with the way they turned out.
I'm going to be kindling these.
Yeah, they're all on the Kindle. I've got 2 of them as paperbacks. I've got to do the others as paperbacks. And I am doing the audiobook, recording the audiobook of Crimson King, the first book at the moment.
Yay!
And it is taking time.
I was going to say, I was
investment.
talking with Madeline about that because she has an audio recording and I'm interested in doing something like that. And she was like, it's a lot of work. And I was like, tell me about it. She was like, oh my God. And she just went on and on. I was like, ooh, Morgan, you're doing an audio? Great.
It's hard. I'm about 6 chapters in and already thinking, I can't do 4 of these. And there's going to be 6 in the series. And
what have I done?
So we'll see how we go. But yeah, the first one's good fun. It's also harder because I'm having to do it with an American accent because again, most of my audience is American.
Oh, yep.
And American folks tend to like hearing that tone,
Yes.
or except in your villains. You love a British accent in the villains.
Yes,
So,
with a deep voice. There you go.
Yeah. So it's hard sometimes to get the pronunciation correct and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know what version of accent I'm using. It's kind of, it goes a little bit Old Westy sometimes.
From New York, I don't know. Kind of Old Westy.
It's kind of a bit, well, okay, because I've finished writing a script a while ago. So the director friend of mine is putting together a film called A Blood Moon Rising. So it's a Western horror.
Cool.
That I wrote. And as I was writing that, I was speaking in a kind of Old West American accent in my head to try and get into the character. So that's the voice that's in there now. That's what Ambrose's voice is like now.
You're like, this is because I read something else and now he has this voice and I got to stick with it for the rest, right?
That's right. That's
so you said there's going to be 6 books total. Did I hear that right?
6 books in this
series. Nice.
Then,
so there's more coming. Great.
So there's 2 more coming. There's a spin-off series to this coming with at least 4 books in it, which is based off his daughter. And then there's a prequel that I've done for this, which I'm editing at the moment, which should be finished in a month or so. Which kind of tells the story of the 2 main characters, him and his ex-wife, the 2 main characters, about their pre-story and how they were before things went bad, basically.
Yeah.
And it's urban fantasy. So it's urban fantasy, it's weird fiction, and it's horror. So it definitely has big horror elements and kind of world-ending, creepy crawly stuff going on as well. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've really enjoyed the series. And book 2 has a bit of a Cthulhu kind of vibe, bit of an underwater old gods kind of feel as well. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it immensely.
Look, heed the brine song, for the old gods have returned and the world will drown in brine and darkness.
Yes.
I like it.
Indeed. Yeah.
These are awesome. So this I was like trying to count in my head. So now there's 2 of these, and you said 4 books of the spinoff. You said there's at least 2 more enmity books, and then maybe another spinoff. So that's 3 comic books and 6 novels, and you're editing us. No wonder why I don't see you anymore, man. You're so busy.
I'm doing too much writing. There's another screenplay that I had to do that I got finished for a horror film called Midnight Maniac. That was hard because, man, writing a slasher, that's just not my thing.
No.
Anyway, so I had to do that. And then there's a comic series called Bloodsmith coming out on Kickstarter with Comics to Movies as the publisher in a couple of September, I think. And then in August, I think, A Blade in the Dark is coming out, which is that one there through Scout Comics, which is a really cool black and white horror story with an artist friend of mine who did the artwork. It's a real kind of real cinematic style stuff. Really cool. Nice. So anyway, there's a lot going on, but this is why I'm focusing more on writing now, the novels, because there's just too much. And
man, you have to, at some point you just have to start saying no to the things. It's like, this is what I'm trying to do, and I need to focus on that. And it's like, you could be doing 17 other things because people always invite you to do things and collaborate. But it's like, at some point you do have to say, no, I don't have time for that. I need to be focusing on X, Y, Z. So I get you.
It hurts your efforts if you're not channeling everything. The problem is, though, as soon as you decide, so I'm basically having a hiatus from comics for a little while I focus on the comic novel stuff. The problem is, the moment you make that decision, there's still like a 12-month runoff period of projects you've already started that are rolling out. So you can't just quit. You have to just kind of They're
like, hey, dude, help us promote this comic that you're a part of. No, sorry.
That's right. No, I don't want to do that anymore, because I know I will come back in a big way at a point in time. So it's like,
Well, I congratulate you on all the success that you've had and all these all crazy how many projects you're working on. I don't know how you do it. I'm getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and I feel like that's all I can handle. So for you, you're just doing so much stuff is amazing to me, and I applaud you. I want to ask you to collaborate on things, though. I'll be like, dear Morgan, do you want to da-da-da-da-da? And you'd be like, Laurie, you know how many things I'm working on.
Honestly, for you, you can always ask. I'm always happy.
That wasn't my point. But I find that I do, like, when I do talk to you, I am inspired. My short commercial, the ad that I played for, this one.
What is Path of the Pale Rider anyway?
That was because of Morgan, people. I think I was like, hey, can I come back on your show? I'm Kickstartering. And you're like, I'm doing this other thing right now. But I would love it if you would send me a commercial, if you can be like 30 seconds up to a minute. It is 59 seconds.
Yeah. Perfect.
Do you remember we were like, do the 5-minute pitch, and mine was like 15 minutes, and I was like, I just can't do it.
It was 35 minutes.
Was it?
It was.
You're like, I think I cut it down. I can't.
Yeah.
Explain it in 5
minutes. It's a huge world. There's so much going on.
I just do so many different things. It's hard to squish it into 30 seconds. So I was just like, but I love that commercial. I got great response from it. And it was just like, me doing that commercial for you. And now it's everywhere. I was just like, everybody can have this commercial. So it's, I love when I get to talk to you, because a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, same. And I like talking to other people that are as crazy busy and silly with this stuff as I am. That's inspiring, just to know I'm not the only one doing way too much, and loving it.
You also have a web page. I would like to peruse through that as well.
There he is.
I love your pictures where you're like, even on your, let me go back. Hold on a second, people. Look at, I don't know if you saw it like I did, but on the Amazon, right? So, go back. Because here's Morgan Quaid. I love your little pictures. It cracked me up.
Well,
you're always making faces.
I've just sent you a link to my YouTube channel, which is
the one where you're making like this kind of caricature. Yes, this one.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I've seen the one where your mouth is open, and then when I went to your webpage and you're making the face, I was like, this is the face. This is the Morgan Quaid face. So Leo, look.
Yeah.
Here, look, people. This is what I'm talking about. I'll push the buttons. Look.
I used to be shy as a writer. I used to not put my face out there. Then I just did a 180 and I thought, nope, it's branding. People are going to see my face wherever they look.
Like this one. Look. Oh, is it going to put it on? Let's see. Ow.
Ads.
You're determined. This is the year that you're going to write your first novel.
It didn't do it, but but I just love like when you make all these faces for your
Yeah.
for your branding. It just makes me laugh. I love it. So that's why I was cracking up at your website, because I was like, he's doing the thing.
Yeah.
There we go. So here you are on your webpage, Morgan Quaid. So what? Everybody kind of has their purpose for their website. Mine is to talk about my comic book. What's the purpose of your website?
At the moment, it is sign up to the newsletter, get a free copy of the first book in the Crimson Hunger series. So that's the kind of main aim. But then, you can go to other places and see, everything else that I've done. And part of the problem is there's just too much. So it's hard you just got to focus on one thing. So at the moment it's focusing on that series. And also people that want to be writers.
Yeah.
I've got obviously the YouTube channel. There's me again.
With the face.
With the face.
But it so you're coaching people on writing techniques and fine-tuning their skills. That's cool.
Yeah, so writing for predominantly novels, but I also do some comic stuff in there, and just all the kind of behind the scenes stuff that people don't realize, and trends that I've picked up, mistakes that I've made that I wish I hadn't, all of that sort of stuff is kind of nice and helpful. And then so that's the original cover. So these are the original covers for the artwork. So you can see it's kind of like, well, that would be a great graphic novel, but just doesn't scream urban fantasy books.
Looks like Constantine.
Yeah. It does have that vibe, and it's a similar kind of world or story. Yeah,
I love Constantine. So
and Whiplash. So that's the first book that I put out. That's the one that I'm saying the cover just screams graphic novel. It doesn't look like a novel. That was a bit of a boo-boo. Shackled Man is another one. Script Rebellion, that's a graphic novel that I did a little while ago. It's a really cool steampunk horror sort of story.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of like paranormal and horror. What is it that attracts you to that genre?
I like anything that's extraordinary, anything that is strange, shocking. I don't like the slasher style, so I don't like normal people being horrible to one another. I don't like true crime. I don't like murder, like that sort of thing. I love the idea of there is something in the closet coming through from another dimension that is going to decimate the world, or if I look in a puddle at the right time of day in the right angle, I see an eye looking back at me. I love the idea of there are two worlds. There's our world and another world, and there's sort of some sort of travel between the two. But what really interests me is what are the things that live between those worlds? What are the nasties that are inhabiting that area, and what are they interested in? And what are, there's always a bigger fish. There's always something creepier. Right. And so I like that you can explore that in urban fantasy, but with a kind of investigation bent. So, because the problem with a novel is there's a reason I don't write epic fantasy. I've got about 3 epic fantasy novels sitting in various stages that will probably never get done. Because they can become sprawling, they're a nightmare to edit, they're just massive. Whereas an urban fantasy book, you can style it like a crime thriller, which is a thing has happened, someone needs to find out what's happened and solve the crime and get to the end and then fix the world or whatever the case, or save the world. So it has that nice structure already, which means you can contain a story that goes all over the place but it does get to a definite ending, and you're confident you can end it, and it's all within a nice sort of time frame. So that's mechanically, that's one of the reasons why I like that genre. And look, it took me 15 years to get to the point of realizing, this is the sort of style I should be writing, because it naturally lends itself to the sort of stuff that I like. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. But 15 years took you 15.
It did. Well, because I started with sci-fi, and then epic fantasy. I mean, this is, it's 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It takes a while for it to sink in. 'Cause I've gone through every imaginable genre to try and find the one that I'm sort of leaning towards, and then urban fantasy. I had resistance to urban fantasy for a long time because of one word: romance. And the overwhelming amount of paranormal and urban fantasy books that are romance based, and series like Twilight and that sort of thing. I had such an aversion to that I don't want to write about shape-shifting boyfriends and vampires with glistening skin. I can't do that. Yeah, exactly. So for a long time that I was holding on. Then I actually made the first Shadow's Daughter was originally a novel before it was a series. It's basically about a bounty hunter who can twist shadow and use it as a weapon and all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
She's really cool. So I wrote the novel purely as a way to force myself to write in a genre I didn't want to. So I said, all right, you're going to write something with vampires and werewolves in it because you do not like that stuff. You hate it. It's been overdone. You're going to force yourself to write a book. As I started writing, got into it, I realized, there's ways you can twist this thing. Like, for instance, vampires, in my mind, should not be glowing, beautiful creatures. They're parasites. They're the undead. They require blood to keep going. They should be these despicable creatures in the shadows of society and all that stuff. So anyway, so as I started writing, I realized I'm really getting into this story, and I'm really liking the dark, murky city type world that this is set in. I like the fact that I can hint at these massive epic fantasy and sci-fi things without having to explore them all. I can just hint at them in the background. So writing that book, I got to the end of it and I just thought, I really like this. I don't think this is necessarily the right story for it yet, but and that's where it sort of started. And then there we go. And then The Seven Hungers was the first book where I, from start to finish, really tried to build a story and a world that kind of made sense within that genre. And then, went from there.
Yeah. That's forcing yourself to write a novel and starting out in a genre that you don't like. That's brave.
Could have got, well, okay, I haven't admitted this much, but I did go one step braver, because something like, it might have changed now, but something like 70% of books that are sold worldwide in fiction are romance books. And there is a wide range of romance types, and urban fantasy and sci-fi is part of that type. So I wrote fantasy romance book and sent it to a friend of mine. It was so hard, because the thing with romance is, and this is no disrespect to people that like romance, but the thing with romance is, to write a good romance book, it goes on forever and nothing happens. It's all about the emotional intensity and the getting to a point, but not quite. So it's just suspense, sort of not getting there. My books are the opposite. I want things happening every chapter. I want the world ending every second chapter, all that sort of stuff. I want to be moving quickly. So it was murder to write. Then I sent it to a friend of mine and said, can you take it to your reading circle who love romance and tell me what they think? It took like 4 months to write this thing and another 3 to edit it. And it was I was crying tears of blood as I was doing it. It was horrible. She came back and basically said, no, they did not. They love the story.
Well, at least you tried.
Her comment was, I love the story. The world was really imaginative. This isn't romance. And I'm like, well, I'm done. But then I realized afterwards that if I had have been successful, that would have been the worst thing possible, because then I would be writing books I hate and don't enjoy. That would just be another a day job. Why would I want to do that?
Well, you don't necessarily have to write them, but that's hard when 70% of the market is that genre. That's what people are consuming. And if you can write something that people want to consume, are you writing it even though you hate it? I don't know. You know?
Well, I came to the point where I thought it's a choice between, it's not as black and white as this, but it's a choice between writing something I love that may not be as appealing to as many people, or writing something that purposefully to appeal to people, but in a genre that I hate. And I'm at the point. Well, I was going to say, I'm at the point now where I can. There's a kind of halfway between that, so I can write urban fantasy and I can use tropes that are appealing to a wider range of readers. So I can purposely weave those in, but still in a style that I love. And I can have romantic elements and I can have all the drama and all that sort of stuff, but it's still something that I enjoy and that I love. So it's kind of a happy balance that I've managed to get to.
I can see how you can find a happy medium there, but I don't know. I'm like you. I like every issue in my comic. It's like something really bad happens. You know, I think at some point someone was like, "Oh, first time I watched The Notebook, it was so life changing," and I was like, "The Notebook?" They were like, "Yeah, The Notebook." The first time I watched it, and I'm like, "How many times have you seen The Notebook?" And they're like, 12. And I was like, good God. And they're like, how many times have you seen The Notebook? I was like, 0. I'm not seeing The Notebook ever. I mean, whatever. People like that stuff. I have friends that love Twilight. I read Twilight and wanted to light the books on fire because I wanted to punch Bella. I wanted to punch Bella in the face half the time. Like, it just wasn't for me.
A protagonist with no agency or any sort of clear, really, that wasn't appealing to you.
Her whole purpose was to be in love with Edward and to drive everybody crazy. Like,
well, and I mean, this is the other thing as well. This is why I don't write young adult stuff, even though that I have in the past. That Whiplash series is a young adult series. Again, no disrespect. I love everyone.
Right.
I can't do teenage stuff. I can't do the teenage drama. If I see another TV series come out with teenage angst as the main, I don't care. Your children, get a bit older, get some miles on you, live some life, then I will care more about what you're doing. But if you're in college or junior high or whatever, the irony is, as a teenager, I hated that stuff as well. I've never liked that.
I've never liked it either. I think the only show that I enjoy that has kids in it is Stranger Things, and that's it. But I mean, that's in a league of its own, you know. But other than that, it's like kids is the main character.
And that one, it has a nice line there, but you're not delving too far into the teenage angst stuff. There's a bit of it there, and there's the relationships and all that sort of stuff.
But there's so much other
backdrop
stuff.
is it just sucks everything out, which is great. That's really cool.
That's
well done to those guys.
Oh yeah, amazing
things, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, and I tell you what, here's a plug for something that doesn't need a plug. I watched Arcane, the animated series, a little while ago.
What's it called?
Arcane. It's based on League of Legends, a game, like top-down sort of team versus team game. And normally anything based on a game, I think, is going to not be great.
Usually
this thing
it sucks,
was amazing. I mean, the animation was stellar. The art direction and everything else was just, it was just captivating the way it was done. The story was great. The way the characters were brought in, and talk about drama and sort of, you know, all that sort of stuff. It was, I highly recommend it. It was just an amazing watch. That's the sort of thing that I will, if I'm stuck in writing, I'll go and watch something like that, because you kind of just lose yourself in it. And the mix of the visual with the story, I was well done to them and their
take notes, right? It was like, how did
dollars.
they get this? I do that too, especially when I'm doing my little short films. I know they're not the
Mm.
like best quality, but I think they're fun. And I think like having the fans be interactive with them, they get joy out of it, and we get to tackle stuff from the story that you're not going to see in the comic, etc.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I get stuck, and I'm like, because I haven't been to film school, and I'm like, how do you get this? How do they elicit this emotion in XYZ? So like when I was doing the last one, it was psychological horror, and I was watching the movie Smile to see like how they created fear in that person. Well, it was just them by themselves in the house. Like, what was the camera angles? That movie was like super claustrophobic and very quiet. So you're waiting for that jump. So I was like trying to emulate that, but I'll do that too. Like when I need ideas, I'm like, I'll go watch stuff. Another animated one based off of a game that was amazing was Castlevania. Was on Netflix. And I was like, man, if Path of the Pale Rider could get the Castlevania treatment someday, I could die happy. Like, that would be great to see it like that.
This is the thing, though. So this is the dilemma that every creator's got to face, barring a few exceptions. Pardon me. Every time I say the word exceptions, it makes me cough. I don't know why. I do not like exceptions. So barring a few exceptions, the most of the time, as you know, you write a script.
Yeah.
You sell that script.
Yep.
You have no creative control whatsoever on whatever comes out of that, which must be so soul destroying if you've poured yourself into this thing to watch it then just become something completely different to what you'd hoped and imagined it would be. I watched a film last night, a superhero film. I won't say what it was, but it was one of the worst films I've ever seen. There was no depth of story, depth of character. There was no time taken to create a sense of connection or anything. And this thing is a multi-million-dollar film. And you think it gets to that stage. Someone has written a truly terrible script. It's been edited, re-edited, shaped, all the rest of that. And it's gotten through. They've done casting. They've done storyboard. They've done this whole thing, months and months and months, millions of dollars. And it's ended up as this soulless kind of thing that just doesn't connect at all. If you were the writer, you'd just be, that'd be so... Yes. But then the flip side is one of your things would have, in some capacity, made it to Hollywood. So it's like,
see, I don't know how I feel about that. That's, when I wrote this and when people are like, pitch it to Netflix, I was like, that was my nightmare. I was like, they're going to pay me next to nothing because I'm a first time writer. And then I will lose creative control on this. People are not attached to my characters yet. People don't understand them. So they're going to get the bastardized Hollywood version of my characters and my story. And I wasn't prepared to do that. I was like, no, I won't be pitching to Netflix because it'll turn into something that I'm not prepared for it to be. So that's why I was like, I really would like more control. And that was one of the main reasons why we did comics, is so that people could start reading it and, getting the story basically straight from the horse's mouth, right? Yeah. Pun intended. Where they get to experience Path of the Pale Rider as it's intended to be. Maybe someday I'll sell the script into something, but at least people will have a chance to read it. It's kind of like Walking Dead. You know what I mean? Like they did the whole comic. So it's out there. You can read what it's intended to be, and you can watch the TV show on Netflix in entirety at this point, and you can kind of compare the two, but at least you can understand what the intention was and why they went a certain direction. And either way, you know what I mean? What they did in the comic versus what they did, on the screen, and they're different, and they both have their pluses and minuses. They both reach a different crowd.
And there's more pressure if you get some level of success and in the written form, then before it gets picked up, there's a bit more social pressure there to don't stray too far from the original. Whereas if you, like you say, you're a first time writer and you just go straight to them, they don't care. Well, odds are it will sit on someone's shelf and get buried. That's where most of them end up.
And you sold the rights, so maybe you're not
Yep.
allowed to produce it anymore, and they shelve you. So I
That's
mean,
exactly right.
it's a scary world out there sometimes. But I mean, big publishers could do that to you too. That's
Oh, I've
happened
had that happen.
to you personally.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Yep, I've had a comic that will never be made, and I spent money and time. Great story, really amazing artist. It won't go anywhere. It's just buried, and because of the type of contract, I can't do anything. So move on. That's what we do, is we just move on. But yeah, just about everyone's got a story of being sort of, so there's being shafted, as they say, in that way, and then there's the less obvious. You sign with a publisher, and then you realize, it's kind of locked down to them now, and they're not going to really do much to promote it. It's all down to me. So what was the benefit of you know, it's kind of not doing anything. Only now there's less that I can do with it, because I have to check with another, entity before doing anything. There's a lot of, particularly in this day and age, there's a lot going for self-publishing.
That's
way more than there used to be.
And that's why there's a lot of people that were in Marvel, DC, Image that are now self-publishing, because they don't have to be constrained, to what those guys were doing, or it's this, like you said, there's a lot to be said about self-publishing. That's why it's like having kids. We love it, we hate it, but we'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll be back.
It's painful. We're doing it again.
That's exactly right. It's also you learn a lot, but it still kind of feels like every Kickstarter is its own beast.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like, well, I've done this 6 times before. This one will be exactly the same as the last one, but with a bit more. It's like they're all different, because people change, they drop out, they move on, circumstances change.
Depending on the time of the year it is. Like I've done Kickstarters in the spring, and I've done Kickstarters in the fall. Completely different, how they turn out. It's weird. It just is weird. And then you think you plan and you do everything that you think you can, and then you find out that there's still something else you could do, and then you learn from it and you try to do it the next one, but by then everything has changed again. Story of life, man.
And then you add social media to that, and then you add mailing lists to that, and then you add platforms like Amazon and all the rest, and they're all changing, all adapting. It's a lot to keep up with. Yeah, for sure.
But we're too stubborn.
You got to do it.
We're just too stubborn to quit.
Yeah. Well, and think about, again, like circling back to the start of my personal history with writing. When I first started, there was no avenue like this. Social media didn't exist really in the form it does now when I first started. So you couldn't get the word out there. It's such a struggle now. At least if you really push and you're consistent, you can slowly kind of gather a crowd around you. Back then, it's like cold calling or knocking on people's doors or that sort of stuff. It was so much harder. So it is a lot better now to reach people. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think that even with COVID and having everybody in lockdown, we had to get savvy of how we do things via social media and the internet. And that's really what kind of pushed people to Kickstarter as well. There's a lot of people at Kickstarter. Now there's all sorts of platforms, right? So we have Kickstarter, we have Indiegogo, we have Fund My Comic, we have Zoop, Backer Kit. Like there's all sorts of platforms now, and you can experiment. One of the guys I interviewed, he's launching in July. I'm going to be watching what he does, because he is launching a campaign on Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and Fund My Comic at the same time.
Oh, interesting. That's a lot of work. Wow.
That's what I said to him. I was like, that's going to be quite an undertaking. He was like, but it isn't. He's like, I'm going to do one show, right? And you're going to have an audience that is either more likely going to be on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Like specifically those two, people don't usually cross-pollinate. They're usually one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And then with Fund My Comic is kind of the new kid on the block. And so if he talks to one audience, and some of them can go to Indiegogo, and some of them can go to Kickstarter, and some of them might go to Fund My Comic. He's essentially reaching all three markets at the same time.
It makes sense. It's a bit more set up initially because you got to set them up on all three platforms and all that stuff. But you're right, you could do the same the same social media stuff and everything, and just link to one thing that says pick which one you want to go to. It's all the same wherever you go. Yeah.
As long as he can do flexible goal on, I don't know if you can do flexible on Fund My Comic. I'm not super familiar with them yet. I know you can on Indiegogo, and then maybe set a lower goal on Kickstarter than what you typically would, because that's right. The problem is that, let's say you have 100 people that are going to back you, and if they're backing you across three platforms, you might not hit that.
That's right.
Unflexible goal on Kickstarter that you have to hit in order to get paid.
There's also
that's my only concern.
And you're so let's take Kickstarter as an example. Say you've got $1,000 you want to hit or something. You just managed to hit that with your 50 backers or whatever, because 50 have gone to Indiegogo or wherever else.
Right.
It looks worse for those coming to Kickstarter. Then they're less likely to back you, because you're like, well, it's not really that popular. I'm not. Whereas if it's over and above, if all of those 100 had gone on the one platform, it kind of, in people's minds, like, well, this is super successful. I want to get involved. Right.
So that was my concern with it too. So that's why I'm like, kudos to you for making yourself the guinea pig. We're all going to watch you and see. Then you can let us know what was good and what wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I would never do that, but I can see your point.
Yeah.
Because I ran a Kickstarter and then I ran a second chance on Indiegogo, and that Indiegogo did nothing. But I wasn't promoting. I wasn't heavily promoting at that time. And
because you've done it all on the first one.
Yes.
Exactly.
I mean, we were very successful on the first one. We had 118 backers, and we were at 138% of goal. And then I got 7 backers on the Indiegogo. But I feel like Indiegogo doesn't have the same organic, like you can't find things organically on Indiegogo like you can on Kickstarter, where they'll be like, hey, based off of, things that you've backed, we recommend this. Indiegogo, 100%. I feel like if I wasn't talking about it, nobody found me.
Yeah, I've done the same. I've done 4 campaigns on Indiegogo and 6 or 7 on Kickstarter. And same thing, you do one on Kickstarter and then you move over. The reason I favor Kickstarter is because I get 0 organic traffic from Indiegogo. Whereas on Kickstarter, even if I put something in there, now all of my projects will look really good. They I put a lot of work into them looking really good. Yeah. So they look good. They're attractive to the eye and all that sort of stuff. But even if I put it on there and did not do any promotion or advertising, I know I would pick up maybe 20, 25 people just from them searching and finding it and all that sort of stuff. Do the same on Indiegogo.
Nobody.
0. It just doesn't have that same thing, and I'm not sure why, but that's been my experience too. Yeah. Yep. That's 100% it. Like I get new people that just stumble across Path of the Pale Rider and be like, "What's this?" And then you get you don't get them all, but you get some. But that's why I was like, wow. I knew when I got backers because I was on a podcast when they backed. You know what I mean? So I could watch it go up. So I knew exactly when I was getting backers on Indiegogo. So I was like, I like the flexible feature. I like the in-demand feature. However, no one could find you unless you're doing a lot of work. So it's like, that's why I was like, maybe if I ran an Indiegogo while I was doing you know what I mean? For a flexible, because most of my people are Kickstarter people. You know what I mean? Because that's where we've been for the last few campaigns. So it makes sense that I would stay there so they could find me. But if I ran an Indiegogo at the same time, at least then for those people who are like, I hate Kickstarter, I'll never back on there. It's too bad you're not on. Then I could be like, oh, we also have an Indiegogo. You know what I mean? But I'm already doing 30 shows. So it's a lot. And there are some that have never used Indiegogo or Kickstarter and won't because they don't trust it or they're just not sure what to do.
Let me know when you're done, Laurie. I'll just buy one from you. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. But if you could just buy it now, that would be better for me. No. Wait, just,
No, they don't
can
get
you
it.
bring the book to my house and we'll okay, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, it's a learning
Right,
curve
it's
for
not
people that
done
aren't
yet.
used to it. Yeah, it's not finished yet.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
fun times. So I don't know. There's just, things that we talk about as crowdfunding ideas, like what are you trying to do and this, that, and the other, and so just bouncing ideas. So it's always good to hear what other people are trying to see if it's something new that might work.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
know.
I think it's where every time I run a campaign, I'll try something different
New.
than what I've
Yeah.
tried before, and probably 60% of them don't pan out, but the odd few will be like, oh, okay, they like that. So it's really weird. You just don't know until you do it. And then some people really respond well to something and others not so much.
But I mean, as long as you're trying new things, I think that's what's important, is just kind of keep the ball rolling. Because it's always changing. It always is. And it's like you said, like what you did last time on your Kickstarter and isn't necessarily going to work this time.
That's right.
I had a pledge level that was immortality, where you could get drawn into the comic, and it was $100. And so I ran that in the first campaign. It was like I had like 8 backers. Like a lot of people loved it. They loved it was just great. And then on the second campaign, I only had 1 person back that, and I was like, wow.
And that now means
what the heck?
that means that you have to hold up the production of the book for that one person to get them drawn in as well. So if they're late getting you an image or anything like that as well, that can hold
I just
things
don't
up.
know, because I don't promise them what issue they're going to be in. I say a future
issue.
Okay.
Oh, that's a smarter way to do it.
Because for example, the first campaign, we had an immortality backer who sent in a picture of his daughter, who's a teenager. And so we were in issue number 2, and that was in a bar. And I was like, she wouldn't be there. I'm not going to put her as the bar wench. It just didn't make sense for her to be in that issue. So now she is in issue 3. So, and I talked to him. He was like, hey, I went through issue 2. I didn't see. And I was like, yep, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm like, we have a perfect spot for her. And the next one, it didn't make sense for her to be at the bar. And he was like, yeah, I see what you mean. So he was cool with it. She's got a big spot in the next one, but it's like, I never hold up production. Though. What's that?
That's a genius move on your part, though. Yeah, because you don't hold up production, but it also means, well, he's going to buy issue 3. He has to.
Well,
his daughter's in it. It's genius.
He was already a backer before that, so you know what I mean. But he was just like, hey, I just wanted to say it. I was like, yep, I'm glad you mentioned. I'm like, my artist and I had a talk about that. She's the only one that didn't get in, and this is why. But then we had a whole new slew of people that are in this number 3, and they're all in there. So now we're burned through that level. So I should throw it back up because we need more zombie fodder.
Yeah.
But people, it was just so weird that like people really, really loved that level, and you're like, I'm gonna do it again because everybody, and then nobody, crickets, and then like metal cover for 2 was super popular, but I think it was my pricing on issue 3 because I had a bundle that was like just the metal cover, but then like for $25 more you get all the covers, so they all went there. So I was like, oh, nobody really wants the middle cover. But when I looked at it, I was like, oh, wait, nope. Yeah, they do. They're just over here. So it's just funny, that way where you have to look, from campaign to campaign. I'm a big nerd, and I crunch a lot of numbers. Like I gather all that data from like number of new backers, percent to goal on each day. And I have a formula where I plug them in so I can compare them from campaign to campaign.
Wow.
So I could be like, I'm 5%, above, or like I'm 3 backers lower, or like, you know what I mean? So like I crunch all the numbers.
I do not. I hide myself away. I go on podcasts. I promote ruthlessly on social media, and I just bury myself in other work. Because however good it is, it's never up to my expectation or what I would hope, or there's always like, and it's just a lot of work as well. So I tend to just hide myself away, and then after fulfillment's all done, I'll crawl out again and hey, You know what would be a great idea? Another Kickstarter campaign for my next book. Yeah.
See, it's the video where it's like ping, ping, ping. Next campaign.
Let's just keep doing. Well, so one of the ones that the Enmity one. I did a campaign for Enmity.
Yeah.
Prior to, I'd run a campaign for the first issue, and said, "What do you guys want? What's the extra things that you would like?" They all said stickers, bookmarks, special stuff. So for that, the next campaign, I did all of that sort of stuff. I had a picture of me with a sort of Cthulhu creature wrapped around my head, and then another one is me as like a Georgian kind of prince, with a painting sort of background. And I wrote a hand thing note to people, and two different stickers, bookmark, cool artwork, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I think I got one backer.
Oh, come on.
It's like, dude. I did all this stuff for you guys, and none of you wanted it.
What the heck? And I'm doing the same thing right now, where I'm polling my backers, and I'm polling social media. Like, hey, I always listen to what people want, and I'm looking for new ideas. Like, or if you just want the same stuff, you just let me know. Because I always do a T-shirt. I love the metal covers, but then after that, I kind of mix it up. Like, I do a secret reward, which is always something a little warped, but nobody really knows what it is. So I've done 2 of those, and I think people are starting to figure out the type of thing that I put in there is kick-ass. So I'm hoping like more people. And the next one that I picked out is actually, it cost me a lot less than the last one, so I can drop the price down. Good. So I'm hoping that people will jump on that bandwagon, because those are like, I only do these one time, and it's all handmade stuff, and you can't get it anywhere else. You can't buy these. So so I do that every time, but then it's like, what else are you guys looking for, that I can put in there for you? But I always try to make it related to whatever issue that is as well. Other times people are like, I want hot sauce, and I'm like, all right, well, we're freaking doing hot sauce then. I don't know. People wanted hot sauce, so I got 9 of those, so that's all right.
I think there's also a bit of I think a lot of people don't know what they want until they see it, and it'll be a spontaneous, oh, that's pretty cool, I'll get that. But they wouldn't know beforehand to go, what I really want in a campaign is da, 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 except for your collectors and those sorts of people.
Right. And I also want people to remember the stuff that they get, if it's bigger, it changes your ship. Because people are like, I want mugs, and I'm like, that changes everything. How I ship it to you.
Yeah.
So you may want it until you see how much it's going to cost to ship to you. You don't want somewhere. It's like,
And try that if you're in Australia and you can't print books in the States and print stickers in the States and print T-shirts in the States, and then all combine them in the States and then send it to people in the States without incurring 5 different lots of postage and other costs and everything. So you have to do it here, which means, all right, if you want the package that's got everything in it, great. But I'll be packing it here and sending it from Australia. So the postage will be whoop. But at least you'll get it all in one bundle. Yeah.
Right.
It'll be huge, which is another reason why they're less likely to, buy the big bundle.
I feel you. That's why I did international shipping on my first campaign. I shipped a couple things to Canada, and I had one guy that back from the UK, and I was like, when I looked at it, and I was just like, I don't understand VAT's tax. I don't want to have to get audited by the IRS. I apologized to him and I refunded his money. I'm like, I am so sorry. I was like, here is the free PDF. Here is free everything. I can send you PDF, but unfortunately, like, this was outside of my purview. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I cut back to US only. I have a couple fans that are in Canada, and they just contact me directly. And I figure out their shipping now that I've done a campaign, so I can figure out like what everything weighs.
Yeah.
I can calculate it specifically for them, and I'll put up a backer level with their name on it and be like, this is for such and such with the stuff that she wants and her shipping. And it's only one, so she grabs it and then it's gone. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I can do that, but I don't typically have a bunch of Canadian backers that are looking for my stuff physically. Usually everybody just gets PDF. So
yeah, God bless the digital backers.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And that's why I changed one of my stretch goals. My first stretch goal is the PDF bundle, so that way everybody can get it instead of just physical backers. So I did that too. Before we run out of time, oh my God, it's already a minute. I was like, oh, we need to wrap up here. I wanted to point out on Morgan's website that you can have Morgan give you a consultation. So if you have questions about writing or technique, tell us about this real quickly before we got to go.
Well, if you click on the book now button, it'll take you to a page. I think if this has maybe if you go back and scroll down a bit, that's the actual booking page. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
This one.
So, back where you were, but down the bottom. Anyway, either one. That one there, that's the one. So basically, it's a session where I'll talk about your project, go through what you're looking to do, whether it's a comic book or a series or a graphic novel or a novel. We'll go through a bit of the outlining process and really look at whatever you want to do. And then I'll produce a kind of plan of attack for you on, how you work best, what sort of writing rhythm you should get into, things to look out for if you're, working with an artist or, all that. So basically it's like a one-on-one where I go through all of that and then give you a couple of documents as sort of a guide of, okay, this is your plan. This is what you're going to do. And then we have a follow-up session afterwards.
Nice.
And then I throw in some music because I do lots of music. So you get a bit of
this
music
is
stuff as well.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's my music with artwork from an awesome artist, a couple of different awesome artists, actually. Yeah, so that's just there. So if people do want to have a chat, then I'm available to do that.
Very cool. This is I've really enjoyed having you on this show, and it's like I know it's a 2-hour show, but it always feels like it goes by super fast.
Just quick.
You just get sucked into the conversation. But for everybody that's watching, remember that Morgan has comic books on Any One World. He has books on Amazon. Go check out some of his work. Amazing writing, amazing art. Lots of words,
many words,
and lots of projects coming. So you're going to see lots from Morgan. And I just, and again, congratulations on all of the things that you've completed. What a milestone to have so many titles under your belt. Hashtag life goals for me someday.
Thank you, Laurie. It's been a pleasure chatting with you as always. And again, it is, you are inspiring to people like me that are probably doing too many things and should focus a bit more.
I'm inspiring to you who do too many things. I don't believe that for a second. You're inspiring to the rest of us that are like, I'm doing too much. And they're like, wow, Morgan's doing like 12 more things than I am. I can do more. I should be doing more.
I can do more.
I can do more. I'm doing 4 things, not 12. So get to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Get it done, people. Get it done.
People. So happy 4th of July to everybody that is watching. Thank you again to Morgan for being on the show. I look forward to talking to you some more, sir. And I'm going to be reading some of your stuff. I'm definitely going to go onto Amazon and download some Kindle things shortly. All right, words. I'm excited. So I will catch everybody next week here on the Tuesday Morning Brew. And hopefully it'll warm up in Australia and cool down here in Texas. Somewhere in the middle would be great, right? Somewhere in the middle.
Sweet.
All right. So thank you so much again. I'm going to stick you in the back. We're going to play some commercials on the way out. And thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you soon.
The Civil War was America's bloodiest conflict. Over 500,000 died to preserve national unity. When the war ended, Confederates like Harley Brogdon headed west, shooting game for the Army and gambling. When a card game turns deadly, Harley shoots in self-defense, killing the card sharp who threw down first. Wilfred Knorr, the card sharp's wealthy father, will stop at nothing to see Harley hang. Harley flees to Cobb's Gap, an old silver mining town at the foot of the Rockies, a remarkably peaceful town.